I was nervous about that.
Preparation for Sully.
I remember, speaking of taking things apart, I remember I wanted to see what a watch looked like on the inside.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen,
Massage that. Good one.
Highway Commissioner, Cemetery Commissioners meeting of September 10th, 2018. First order of business is rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, shoot, I haven't learned how to shut this thing off yet.
Carrie will help you.
Mr. Joseph's got a new phone, so I'm gonna have to get the user manual out. Oh, you got it.
He's fine.
Everybody's present tonight?
Yeah. I gotta grab my phone to continue.
Everybody was present. First up on the agenda, the minutes of August 27th, 2018. What's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of August 27, 2018 as written.
Motion made, is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One abstention?
No, you called in.
Huh?
That's not you called in.
I did? That was the meeting I called in for?
Yep.
Never mind the extension. Never mind it. Don't pay attention to that stuff, Danny. Okay? I'm a yes.
Can't say that too much
I
longer.
forgot that was the one.
Hey, can't say that too much longer. All in favor, state aye.
All right.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, appointments, resignations. Under appointments for Police Department, we are proud to bring up Officer James Masso Giovanni, full-time police officer, effective 9/14/2018, with a probationary period ending 9/14/2019. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We're pleased to have Jim Mastrogiovanni here. You appointed him as a student officer back a few months ago. He entered the State Police Academy back in April, and he's due to complete that this Friday. So if he doesn't mess anything up between now and then, we should have a successful graduate. And so we're glad to have him on board. He's going to, I think, really do a great job for us. He's worked for us part-time for about 2 years before that, so I think he'll really do a good job. So what I'm asking the board to do is appoint him as one-year probationary period on a full-time status, starting effective September 14th, effective Friday of this week, and it'll be a one-year period expiring on September 14th of 2019.
Jim, anything you want to add?
I'd just like to thank the chief and thank the board for the opportunity. It's a great town, it's a great department, and I look forward to spending many years here.
Excellent.
Mr.
Questions?
Anybody questions?
Two.
Sir?
Chief, where does this bring our full-time staff up to?
I believe we'd be at, I think we'd be at 14, I believe it is.
14?
Yeah, full-time.
Do you anticipate any additional changes in the foreseeable future? Additions or anything else?
I would like to discuss that with the board at some point, yeah, about doing some
Okay.
restructuring and staffing and things like that, yes. So it'd be a good discussion to have with the board at some point up the line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Siganovich?
Welcome. Nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Ruda?
Well, I was gonna move to a point, but I'll have Mr. Marcy do it. He was trying to do it earlier, so
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna move, but James, Jim, we're happy to have you here. You know, I'm happy to make a motion to appoint you to be a full-time police officer effective September 14th, 2018, with the one-year probation period ending, expiring September 14th of 2019.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, state aye.
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 Unanimous.
Good luck.
Thanks, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
You want to get a...
Yeah, why don't you do, yeah.
go ahead.
Kind of a big deal.
Well, maybe if you ask nicely,
Get new
Chief, maybe
people,
Lynn
right?
can take the picture. Maybe you ask nicely, Lynn will do the picture for us. That way you can come up too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Oh, the
We
amazing
doing the
movie
picture?
can do that.
We're gonna hire Lynn now?
I don't want to block anybody's face.
I'm behind here.
You can block everything but my face. How's that?
Go next to Paul. Go right on front. You stay in front. I'll go next to Paul.
All right, hold on.
You block Kerry's face with it.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yep. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Eric.
Awesome.
Good luck, James. Finish
Well,
up the
thanks,
week.
Jim. All right. This is Frederick Meyer.
Historical Commission reappointment, Frederick Meyer, term to expire June 30th, 2021. Is he present? No, he's not. Greg, anything you want to add on this
No.
appointment?
No, I have nothing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we reappoint Butch Meyer Frederick Meyer to a term to expire June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Fred.
Public comment, citizens' comments. Anything wishing to be heard that's not on the agenda tonight for any issue? Hearing none. Town Administrator report, Mr. Valkunas.
Yeah, hi. Couple things. First update is the organizational assessment of the Highway, Water, and Sewer Department begins tomorrow. So the consultant that we have hired, it was Municipal Resources Incorporated out of New Hampshire. They're sending down two of their consultants, and they will begin by having conversations with various staff, myself and Mr. Guyon, someone from the Water and Sewer Departments, and beginning their process of evaluating and determining what best practices we should adopt. The project schedule is 90 days. So I expect that the report will be completed about the beginning part of December, somewhere in that time frame. I'm sure they're going to want to talk to you, and they're going to want to meet and talk with members of the Water and Sewer Commissioners. We'll coordinate those dates with everybody, but the project is about to begin. I'm excited about it. You'll remember that we accelerated the project because of the fact that we have some unique circumstances where both Dan and John Meehan from the Water and Sewer Department are both going to be retiring, and so let's push the project schedule up a little bit. But I don't see any reason why we won't get underway and it won't be a smooth project, and we'll have everything back in front of the board.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ruda.
Greg, what do we expect to glean from the finished product?
So we expect that we're going to have a report, and the report is going to evaluate things, policy and organizational changes that we can make in both departments in the name of promoting greater efficiency and effectiveness in the department. So it could be a wide range of things from day-to-day operational policies to recommendations in terms of staffing and organizational structure. We've given the consultant a pretty broad mandate. We haven't told them that there is a certain thing that we're looking for at the end of the day. There's been conversations about Department of Public Works in the past, and I can tell you as a person who wrote the RFP, that those words are never mentioned in here. So we want the consultant to kind of come back and look at how we compare to departments of a similar size and make some recommendations to us. So they owe us a draft report, and the draft report will be ready, and we'll share that with the board, and away we go.
Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chairman, Greg, do we have a plan, a go-forward plan for the, anybody interim until then? I know Danny's coming up, and
Yeah.
John as well.
So what we're going to do is, we're going to talk to an in-house candidate this week, and if that candidate has interest and we have interest in him, then we'll be back to the board with the recommendation that it's next meeting. For interim services for water and sewer.
Water and sewer, and what about?
I'm sorry, for highway.
Highway, okay.
What am I talking for highway? Water and sewer, I know that they had made an interim appointment. I haven't heard anything further on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Next thing on my list. So we are in the process of going through something called Hazard Mitigation Plan Update, and you may wonder what that is. So we're required by FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Act, and the Mass Emergency Management Agency to update our critical infrastructure facilities and hazards. We last did that back in 2012. And there were a number of facilities, structures, and areas in town that were identified as being critically prone to hazards. We've enlisted the services of the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission to help us do that. We've had 2 meetings. The reason why I bring it up is it's an internal working document right now with police, fire, highway, water and sewer, the treasurer, the planning department. So we have a number of people on the inside who are all working with this project. But once we have a draft plan, then we are required to get public comment, and we will do that. And then the plan will finally come to the board for adoption. And that's the reason why I want to give you a heads up, is we're working on that with the understanding that we have an updated plan that we have to bring to you for adoption and approval. And then It also requires approval with FEMA and MEMA, so it's a lot of different people involved, but nevertheless, it's something that we have to do. So we will, next month, we'll have our hearing, and we, the working group, will solicit public comments. The final plan will be put together. It then goes to FEMA, as I understand, for their approval, and then it comes back to you for your approval also. And you may ask at the end of the day, what does this entitle us to? It doesn't entitle us to anything. It ensures that we stay out of the radar screen of the people who want to perhaps penalize us with the fact that we don't have a plan in place. So it has to be updated every 6 years, is which why we're doing it now.
So, Mr. Chairman, would that come under the emergency management director too? Would he?
He's working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've been great. They've been invaluable in terms of providing input into the process.
Thanks. So I kind of remember that. Okay. Thanks.
So we'll advertise for the public comment piece. And then the next update that I have is I recently attended a water and sewer meeting, and the subject of discussion at that meeting was something called inflow and infiltration. It's water that flows into the sewer system. But I thought it was a really good meeting, and what came out of it is the Water and Sewer Commissioners will be embarking on a program to study inflow and infiltration. It's a requirement of the state DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. And to satisfy them in terms of reducing that and ultimately reducing costs to the ratepayers, because every gallon that flows to the Webster treatment plant, Dudley pays for. So it reduces that amount of flow. But there are some costs associated with it, and it's about $230,000, just on the study piece alone. I would suggest that the water and sewer revenues are the appropriate place, and if they're not adequate, that they would borrow money to be able to perform the study. The reason why I want to let you know is the study, the funding would be, a portion of the funding would be appropriated in October of this year, and then the second piece at Springtown meeting, and then the third piece at town meeting in October 2019. Again, the total cost of all of those appropriations is about $230,000. But what will happen is the study will require down the road that the town establish a track for solving the infiltration, which means the shovel hits the ground. So
That's where the real money
there's
comes
just a warning and something that we need to keep in mind, that the study will require at some point additional work to be done. And I think that the engineers that the Water and Sewer Commissioner brought on board have demonstrated a thorough understanding of our issues and our problems. They've identified, they looked at 8 areas in the community and identified only 2 areas which exceed the peak infiltration and inflow rates that the DEP has established. So they'll not be repairing the entire community. They're looking particularly at 2 areas and coming up with a plan accordingly.
Those are the worst affected,
So yes,
infiltrated areas.
worst affected infiltrated areas would be the area in and around West Main Street, 223 West Main Street. And then the other infiltration area would be, let's see, number 6 and number 1. So number 6 would be Daniel Street, and number 1 would be West Main Street.
Really?
So those are the,
It's way out in,
No,
Where
no,
Leo lives.
no, Daniel's right over there.
Yeah, it's right in across from the library.
thinking of Daniels Road.
right, so this would be Daniel Street. So those are the areas that have the most significant infiltration. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, to reiterate what Greg said, I think that the whole point of this is that we're processing groundwater. We're paying to process groundwater as sewer because the pipes are in such rough shape, so spending a little money now to figure out how to remedy the situation will go a long way to
Beneficial.
They will
curbing the cost.
They will at some point do something called smoke tests and dye tests. Those may alarm people. There may be people that are found to have illegal connections that will alarm people. There will be, people will be required to make repairs to their property, which will upset them. And what I'm saying is, it's good to get this information out there early so that people have an understanding that this is a requirement and a mandate that the town has to face.
Okay.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
was pretty thorough.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Next up, licensing and permits, one-day outdoor entertainment license, Nickel College, Thursday, September 27, 2018, from 6 to 8, located in the Copper Quad for a performance by an acoustic guitar. Hello, Lynn.
So moved.
Evening.
Second.
Everything in order, all the paperwork?
Yep, everything's in order. I don't know if the police or fire chief have any comments?
Yeah, we have that paperwork, and she's already talked to the chief.
Yep, it's all here.
So moved by Mr. Marcy, is there a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds. Any,
I'll go 2.5.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Lynn.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your help before. Public hearings, we have none. Nichols College, parking waiver request to park on the west side of Center Road from 12 to 5, from the area of Healy Road to the area of the Olson Residence Hall on Saturday, September 29, 2018, for the annual homecoming football game.
Again, that's been discussed, and it's been discussed with the police chief. It's been approved by him, so I would move that we approve the request.
Second.
Once again, motion made with multiple seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Good luck, Lynn. Next up, approval for the sale of surplus rails. Danny, is this you? Is this Greg?
We can tag team.
Yeah, yeah.
We still have more.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it was last Tuesday, through Greg's office, we did put out a bid for the rails from the, what's known as the rail trail, that we have stacked up at the garage there, surplus rails for sale. And we ended up getting 3 bids, and the highest bidder was, I believe, Railroad Sources and Reclamation out of Pennsylvania. Per ton for the rails, which are approximately 30 feet long, they bid $223.50 per ton.
And that's for both. So for all metal, $223.50 a ton.
That's for the rails.
Well, it's the same for the other two.
No, the other one is $233.
Oh, $233.50.
The plates and spikes that we stacked up on a cone
Okay.
pile is $233.50 a ton. So I would move that that the board vote to offer the sale of those rails and the plates and spikes to Railroad Resources from Pennsylvania.
And is that your recommendation?
Yes.
And I just wanted to reiterate that we had to do sealed bids, there's no hanky-panky. We do a sealed bid solicitation, and these are the prices. It's remarkable that the first 2 bidders are right next to each other in terms of
Me-
price.
Let me make note that I'm going to move that we award it to the high bidder as Danny requested. But I have a reason beyond Danny's recommendation. Scrap it, it'll end up being melted. Railroad reclamation, it will be put to use as best possible as railroad rails and spikes. And philosophically, I'm very much more in favor of that. So that's my recommendation. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further questions for Danny or the administrator?
What's the total
Come on.
amount, Mr. Chairman? How much do you think we'll net from this, Danny?
According to the bid package we put together, they have to go to a certified scale in one of the surrounding towns and give us the weigh slip, and we'll go from
All
there.
right, so we just have the rate per ton,
So we could do
approximate.
900
There's also portable scales.
times 480
Yes, yes.
equals 992.
Carry the 3.
Yeah, I mean, seems like a lot of money.
I would guess probably 40,000 in that neighborhood.
All right,
So what?
so we've got a motion.
And they have
in a
to,
I just
second.
want to know,
We're discussing.
what does it matter how much it is?
within 30 days, it has to be
Well, I
removed.
mean, people want to know what the money, what
Sure.
we could go to, and so that's all.
Doesn't make a difference, it's going to be the same.
But, so it's gonna go back to the highway budget, Danny?
Oh, that,
General fund.
according to the
General fund.
state, because originally the state was gonna take control of all those rails once we pull them out. But they said the
Right.
state, they said the towns could keep them, sell them, as long as you put that money into a designated account to keep the rail trail maintained and-
Right,
and
fair enough.
going from
Yeah,
there.
so what we expect
Dedicated.
is, we put the money toward the ambitious expansion and maintenance of the rail trails. I think that's a great plan and a great idea, and I know the board has endorsed it in the past.
Yep, we have. Mr. Buckavich will be very excited.
That's just for the rails.
He already is. The money doctor came up with over 50,000 for the rails
So
alone.
50,000
Just for the
bucks.
rails.
Yeah,
Not bad.
all right.
So we shouldn't see Ken Butkevich in here for another decade.
Well,
He'll
if he
come
makes
in.
2.5 years, you won't see me again, so that's okay.
A bunch of trees.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye. Thank you for the bid package work.
that was
Thanks,
good.
Danny.
Good work.
That's good.
Next up, proposed amending Article 6, subsection 1, Article 32, subsection 4 and 5, and a proposed new article entitled Elective Offices Dudley Bylaw Discussion. Is this Jonathan, or is this you?
It's gonna be Mr. Valiakonis, then I'm gonna probably make a motion.
Yeah, so I've gone through, and it seems to me like these are things that codify what we consider to be many existing practices. I think it's important to do so. What I would suggest is we send it off to council, because to get it on the warrant, we would want to have council review the proposals. So it's broken down into different areas. The first deals with personnel board actions, and the second piece deals with elected officers. And I would just want to have council look at the sections on elected officers, recall, and establishment of, formalization of the town administrator's duties and responsibilities. Because sometimes when you look at these things, it implies a charter type of vote, and these would be done in the form of bylaw. So we want to make sure that we're on the right side of the law in terms of the fact that it's been done right. But, you know, and like I said, I made specific comments to Jonathan that I gave him. None of them changed what I consider to be the substance of the proposal here, but just simply provided some clarification.
Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, Article 6 makes absolute sense, based on litigation history of the last few years. Article 32, I do have a problem with the Section 52, specifically with reference to, if you could pass this on, Greg, town clerk and town treasurer / tax collector. And the reason I say that is Ora has publicly said that her position should not be elected, but should be appointed. I don't think anybody knows better than she does. And I've heard that Rich may be considering that we take his position and make it appointed rather than elected. So I'd like to I'd actually like to have that looked at carefully.
Okay.
Well, okay, can I just make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I was going to say something real quick. We actually, when this came up a couple months ago, we didn't directly task Greg, but we talked about looking at all positions in
Yep.
town that
Right.
are elected and or appointed, because as we know, the last few elections, some of the other boards, you know, Mr. Blank comes in first and somebody else comes in with 12
Absolutely.
votes. So it makes sense to look at all positions and come up with some more positions that deserve to be appointed.
I agree.
The only reason that those are the only comments I made, that's as far as I got in reviewing.
I knew that'd be a reason.
Well, that's the fourth page, so you must have flipped right to it.
Yeah, you must have gone right through it.
No, so my comment, Mr. Chairman, through the chair, Mr. Joseph, I think that I agree with you 100%. You don't want to limit what you can do in the future, but if we were, I mean, as it stands now, they are both already elected. So, I mean, if we did go to an appointed position, it would necessarily change these
And that
anyway.
makes the board more answerable to the public.
Correct.
Well, this is just a discussion, so people can look at it, mark it up if they want some changes or add anything, and
So the deadline, we're looking to get this onto the warrant, Mr. Chairman, so I would look to Greg as to how long, when this should come back up on the agenda.
So I think board members, it should go to council pretty quickly.
Yes.
If you have changes or revisions that you want to get me, that's great. If not, let's get it to council, and we'll have a second go of it when it comes back from council, because I think it's important to give her an opportunity to go through, and again, make sure that everything kind of lines up and matches up. For example, one of the things that's in here is there's recall language in here. And there already is recall language that exists on the books. It was back from 1980. Michelle was kind enough, and Ora was kind enough to dig out the legislation that was filed back in 1980. And that was done in the form of a special legislative act. So the question to me is, can you change a special legislative act by going ahead and adopting something new in 2018? I don't know the answer to that question. You know, or does it need to be put in, or does it need to be, that was me. Or does it need to be put in verbatim based upon what was adopted back in 1980?
Okay.
I have a copy of it.
And is that the same, Mr. Chairman, for the next item, which is Chapter 41, Section 81U? Are we
No,
going to discuss that, or is that going to go?
no,
to
we're gonna talk about that.
council?
That's got to do with subdivision, Paul,
Okay.
and not this issue.
So if you have any questions or concerns, like Greg wants to push this along, so get him to him as soon as you can. And
I,
move
can I
forward.
pass a question along right now?
Sure.
Greg, could you ask town council to look in, first of all, make sure that you've captured Mr. Joseph's concerns about appointed versus elected? And second, is there a best practice in terms of write-in votes? Is there like a minimum standard, like is it a better practice to have people achieve at least enough votes to mimic what they would be required to get in terms of being nominated for the position?
Versus
Or
like
is
7.
3 votes enough to become a selectman?
Oh, for a
Yeah.
vacancy, you mean?
Right.
I could have to ask that question.
Yeah.
That's been the major hangup with some of these bylaws. They're so vaguely written that, you know, there are major things that we don't speak to in these bylaws.
Yeah, and I'm also reminded when I look through the language on recall, that some of the dates and deadlines that were put in the 1980 legislation no longer apply. So, you know, we gotta kind of line up. We gotta kind of line up because the 1980 Special Act no longer holds water. One of the things that's in there is it says, in 1980, it says the election will be held 35 days from the date that the certificate is certified by the town clerk. And right now, the minimum requirement for an election, when you consider all the notices that need to be filed, is 60 days.
Right.
So what do? Do you follow this, which is legally incorrect, or do you do 60 days? And I think we need to clarify that going forward also. Okay, any other questions? I'll get it off to council and ask her to review it and try to get it back to us within 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Good job, Jay.
Next up, Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81-U, discussion. Mr. Balkulis.
Oh, that's me. So, I put this on the agenda previously because the planning board had indicated they wanted to take action against a developer who had defaulted, and there was some bond money left. And one of the requirements under the law was that the Board of Selectmen needed to take a vote. And if you look at it, it's there, and it says that cities and towns, the Board of Selectmen shall take a vote. One of the things that we've learned since this was put together is that there are many steps that need to take place before the Selectmen vote. And those are namely in the hands of the planning board, and the planning board needs to provide proper notification to the developer that he is in default. And that's a legal process that is in progress. So I would ask you to take no action on this until the planning board is confident that they've met all the legal requirements prior to your taking a vote.
So we'll file this for later date.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
3 questions.
Yeah.
Who's the developer?
how much of the bond is left? And what's the estimated cost of the work that has to be done to meet the requirements of the development?
Yeah, so I think the name of the development is a Country View Estates? Eisenhower Drive. Eisenhower Drive.
Oh, okay.
Anybody?
Off Lions Road.
Eisenhower Drive.
Danny,
Oh,
that's
okay,
still
Eisenhower,
private?
yep.
Eisenhower's still private?
And the amount of the bond that remains, Paul, I don't know exactly, but it's not enough to complete the project in its entirety.
Okay.
And the second question is, what is the value, or the third question is, what are the value of the improvements that are out there? I'm guessing that they're substantial, but this money would go a ways towards solving those issues and those problems.
And how would we, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
How does the planning board propose we pick up the difference? Because we're not footing the bill.
No, we can't.
So what's their proposal for making up the difference?
I guess we'll wait to hear. I'm sure they'll come up with a prioritized punch list of things that need to get done. They'll speak to Mr. Guyon.
I'm not interested in a prioritized list. I'm interested in how are they gonna make ends meet if this bond is not sufficient to cover what has to be done? And I would like to directly ask that question. And someone can show me later after this meeting how to shut off my damn phone. I don't know. You can do it, Kerry?
There's a
I
little
thought I
switch on
shut
the
it
phone.
off.
So Danny, do you know offhand what's left to be done up there? 'Cause it's all built out.
I
There's no-
do, I can respond to Mr. Joseph's question about how much is left. $16,633.82.
You don't have.
I know
Paul, did
walk
you hear
with-
that?
No, sir.
The amount that remains in the escrow account is $16,633.82.
And the estimated amount that is still to be done, the cost?
Well, I'm not
Gonna be-
asking Danny if he knows what's left.
the only thing I can tell you, I don't know about
Right now, it'll shake
the roadway itself. I walked with the developer, I believe it was last spring,
for volume.
and according to our bylaw, any road that's over 2 years old needs to have some certain work done, either repaved or oiled. And when I told the developer, I said, this road has been paved for a good 10 years. I said, it needs to be sealed, much like the developer did at Dave's Way. And the developer at Eisenhower Drive was totally against that. He said, I'm not gonna be able to pay for that. I said, well, the town's not gonna accept the road, it's 10, 12 years old. So any surrounding work on the sidewalks or the lots, I'm not aware of anything that needs to be done there. This is just strictly the road surface.
That's what a minimum sealed.
Yeah.
What is
I
that
don't know
road?
about the drainage basins, where all they go, if they need to be cleaned out. Where all that drainage goes, I'm not sure.
Do you know offhand what the cost is to seal, like per foot, or does it go by linear foot?
I can get you the information, I don't know off the top of my head here. I do know there was a situation, maybe maybe Dean knows, but I was told several years ago that that cul-de-sac wasn't wide enough when it was built to accommodate a turnaround for the ladder truck. But I
It's
don't
very
know,
narrow. It's a
I don't know
narrow
if that's
cul-de-sac.
still a situation or not.
Was the size waived by the planning board?
I don't know, I believe the width had to be 110 feet, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's less than that, I know it's less than
Yeah,
that.
it's definitely a tight turn in there.
We've, Mr. Administrator,
Yes, sir.
we have been left holding the bag in the past inadvertently by the planning board by refunding a bond or bonds when the work was not complete. We've got to be sure this time we're not even going to come close to that and not be responsible, whether it means we have to take out a lawsuit or whatever, or get additional guaranteed monies to add to the bond to equal or exceed the amount of money it will take to complete the work as required.
Well, at one of the previous meetings, I asked the administrator, and we followed up with an email to approach the planner, the planning board. They have what they call a bond reduction form. And what it is they go in with the engineer and they say, okay, some of the work's done. We'll give you some of the money back. And then the work doesn't get done, and we got a situation like we got on Pierpont now. I mean, planning board, very, very recently gave that gentleman, if I say 60,000, I was watching the meeting, I kind of got caught a little bit off guard, and that, if you go up that road has got some big-time problem. You know that. You went up there
Oh,
with the
yeah, well aware
developer
of it,
many
yeah.
times. You went up there, Greg.
I know it well.
And the planning board actually gave him some monies back based on
Because
Graves
they feel
engineer.
bad, why?
Oh, and the guy wasn't even on the agenda that night, I don't
Ah.
believe. I think he came in for something else. But anyway, in my email, I clearly stated too that if Graves Engineering has recommended a bond reduction, they should have to, they must have had to have, or they should have defended it in writing with reports. I would like to see what they were looking at. When I go up there as a layperson, I look and I see potholes and I see roads
It's
collapsing.
not done, yeah, it's,
Or they returned some monies.
Have they already cashed that check?
Oh, I'm sure it was several months ago.
Okay.
There's other roads out there too, Mr. Chairman, that are, they're abandoned, that are private, that need to be
Yeah,
worked on. The developers are gone. I mean, I can
Paula
name
Lane.
Paul Lane, you got Misty Meadow, you got Overlook Drive. Those roads are all crumbling, and the developer's long gone.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're getting to the point now where we need to take an inventory of those type of roads that
I'm
Danny's
sorry,
talking about.
say again?
I think we're getting to the point now where we need to take an inventory of the type of roads that Danny's talking about and start making an offer to, start reminding the residents of these roads that there is a process that will allow them to have these roads improved, the road betterment
And
policy,
ultimately
and ultimately
acceptable.
accepted and maintained by the town. Or at some point, like Danny's been saying since I've been on the board, at some point, we're gonna have to cut bait, and we won't be able to maintain them anymore, or get involved with maintaining them, because it'll start impacting the equipment.
What, does anybody, Mr. Chairman, does anybody know what our recourse is regarding the Pierpoint Estates, where they gave back somewhere around $60,000?
I think that's what, I'm not, don't quote me to that, but I'm pretty sure. it
Oh,
was
I
some-
know,
Yeah,
somewhere
but yeah,
around there.
some,
What do we have for recourse? I mean, number one, it's really not funny. It's not even laughable. And number two, we can't, in my opinion, morally, let that go on. Again,
it's,
that can't be done.
well, they have what they call a bond reduction, I think it's a Form H, the bond reduction form. And at some point, the town's engineer had to have said, yes, and like I said, they must have generated a report somewhere. So I would like to see what they were looking at. He's an engineer, I'm not. But I looked at stuff visually. I've been up there many times with Danny when that gentleman was emailing us back in the spring. You know, I've been up there many times, and, I mean, Danny's been ringing that bell for 3 or 4 years just on that one subdivision
All right, so
alone.
what do we do? What do we do? Instead of talking about it, what can we do?
I think the first thing we do is we ask the planning board to remove the Form H. No more bond reductions. When the project's done, you get all your money back. You don't get a
Okay.
portion back because,
yeah.
you know, you tied up
I
some
think
of your
that's-
monies. That should be the first,
You want that as a motion?
Minimum.
well, we have to, if it doesn't fall under our purview, we have to ask them. So I think we have Greg contact the planner, maybe get on their agenda, or, you know, or get a response from them why they think it might be beneficial, or maybe they'll agree and say, you're right, we shouldn't do that. So
Yeah,
I
can we-
think that's first.
Can we move with reasonable post-haste, Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you,
Absolutely,
sir.
Paul.
And then I like to, my second offer, just on this one isolated issue, I'd like to see the report, whatever they had to justify reducing the bond on that subdivision. Somebody has to defend the action, for that one specific one at least.
We can't eat that. We
Oh, no.
cannot eat any developments.
I think it was 2 winters ago, the gentleman came to the selectman's window and said, I'm not plowing anymore. It costs me too much money. And the word got back to him, well, then you better tell your residents to put plows on their trucks, because we can't do it.
Yep.
And I agree with Mr. Ruda. You know, maybe another issue we have to revisit down the road. I forget how you just phrased it, but, you know,
Okay, so let's dig our feet in.
Through the chair, Danny,
My heels in,
can you
rather.
make a list, or maybe you already have a list of, you know, as you start making your exit, we have a list of things that are on your radar screen, and down the road, we should
Oh, yeah,
start
definitely.
looking at in terms of
I basically got that information already at
private
the office.
roads?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, definitely.
thank you.
It's almost like we feel bad for the developers,
Don't feel
Mr.
bad.
Chairman. No, like the planning board, you know. it's
listen,
like,
this
I
is,
just-
not to
Why
get
do we
off,
say yes? I'm not
to get off the beaten path, there's a big public hearing Wednesday for a subdivision going off of Jesse Road. They got at least three waivers that I seen, And the first thing the guy did was have an access point on Alton, he filled in wetlands, and when Conservation called him in, they didn't even show up. So now the town's gonna turn around and give this guy permission to build Wednesday, and he had a Conservation cease and desist that they didn't even bother to come to the meeting and address. And we give him waivers for road length, the road width, road length, and they took the cul-de-sac out at the request of the fire chief. Those three for sure, and the gentleman picked up 3 extra lots at probably $300,000 apiece from this time, you know, at a net, not a gross, but, I mean, a gross, not a net. You know, and then first thing he did was dump truckloads of dirt and fill in wetlands. Backed right over stakes, and if the neighbor didn't take pictures and call DEP and get conservation involved, who knows what they were gonna do.
Has he gotten approval yet for his?
Supposedly, I believe the meeting's Wednesday for that.
Mr. Chairman, do we have anything that we can do to put a stop to some of this? Is there anything that we as a board can do?
Yeah, with the highway commissioners, we can recommend not to accept finally when they're done, but we can't tell the planning board, for example, what waivers to consider to grant, not to grant.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna move that we, send a friendly advisory, or, as Greg would say, an amicus advisory, to the planning board, urging them to consider and to look into the allegations that the Jesse Road developer violated wetland acts before they grant permission to continue with that subdivision. That's a reasonable motion.
We can get that information from conservation also, they should have it.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Yeah, conservation would have that.
I think a strongly worded letter on our stationery might get someone's attention.
Or not.
Or not, but we need to stop with these
Why don't we
giveaways
add-
that
Is
residents,
there anything else we want to add in this letter to remind
If
about?
you guys have something else you want to add to it,
Well, this,
set
well,
additional,
yeah, the reduction of the bonds and stuff like that.
But I think that'd be a separate issue, we
It
should.
is, but I mean, how many amicus letters are
Well,
we gonna?
the good thing is you only got an amicus down the hall about 50 feet,
Fair.
there's the plan.
can we
Fair.
make, I mean, it's not our business to tell planning board what
No.
to do.
No,
That's why it's an amicus
Right.
advisory, one that I hope that in the spirit in which it's intended, they will seriously consider. But the issue of the bond and bonds and not giving it back till the work project is done, I think needs to be worded much more sternly, and therefore ought to be a separate motion and letter.
And, you know, actually, it doesn't fall under our purview, but we could sponsor, if they choose not to, we could sponsor an article at town meeting to have that film
We
go
could,
away.
we could.
It's in the rules and regulations of the town. So we could sponsor it if they choose
big
not
lever
to.
to pull, isn't it?
We
Wow.
still have a
I didn't know that.
motion?
Yeah.
We do, and it's been seconded by Mr. Ritter, I believe.
yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
So the only sticking point on that would be, is if it's buried in their subdivision regulations, which they have total authority to adopt, amend, change, and revise without going to town meeting.
Oh, yeah, if it goes that way, right.
That Form H
Yeah, maybe.
versus in the bylaw, that would be the only bump that we have in the road.
Oh, well, now, why would that be?
So the planning board has, they have subdivision rules and regulations
Right.
that they can change and modify without going to town meeting.
Absolutely.
So like I said,
That's where
if
it
the Form
falls.
H,
Horrible.
if the Form H is in that rule, then we have to respectfully ask them to.
But
to
unless
adopt.
the motion is to change the bylaw.
And I'm not
As
sure,
it, add respect to bonds.
and I'm not sure if it's in the bylaw, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, it's.
It might be, it might not be, but I'm just kind of saying if it's in their subdivision and not in the bylaw, then it kind of puts us.
Okay, but that doesn't apply to this motion, right?
No, but we
No.
can, but we
No.
can ask them to.
Okay.
ask
Sorry,
them.
sorry to confuse.
No, that's
No, no.
okay. We took a vote on that one.
It's been a long time since I had to do subdivision control stuff.
So
No.
my question now is who wants to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, on the other issue about the bonds?
On the Form H?
Yeah, Form H. We need that as a motion, or we just have Greg talk to the planner and find out exactly where it's located?
Yeah, I'd like, you can direct me to have a conversation with the planner. I think that's important that we have official, it's a board directive versus Valiakonis going up there on his own.
Yeah, Greg
Freelancing.
can make it
Yeah.
clear that the board wants that direction.
All right, then, to make sure we do that and he doesn't get ignored, I'm going to move, I'm making a motion that would table the issue of the planning board and its process, its procedures regarding return of bonds to our next meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up is a informational to the town, our first annual Halloween event, which will be,
I'm not gonna say it.
you're not gonna say it, I won't recognize you. On Thursday, October 25th, 2018, with a parade starting at the library, ending at the town hall. Fire pits and more, s'mores and more, haunted house for kids, game prize snack, and of course, candy. Sponsored by the town of Dudley, Friends of the Library. So please, everyone, we all know how well the Christmas holiday is really taken off, and I think this is
Under
just
Michelle's leadership.
under Michelle's
Mm-hmm.
effective leadership. I don't know how they get it done every year. It gets bigger and bigger, and somehow they pull it off. So, as John Marcy likes to say, this is about quality of life. This is about something for your children to do, something for people to get involved. So if you feel like you want to volunteer, contact the Town of Dudley, Friends of the Library. But please attempt to show
So
up.
have we, Mr. Chairman, we figured out who's going to
Great Pumpkin?
coordinate this besides our poor, overworked, underpaid secretary?
Well,
We have a recreation committee, right?
We have a little volunteer group.
You do?
Yes, we do. We
You
met
gonna
last
do it again?
Thursday.
You going to do this?
Yes, we are. We have money.
Cool.
Money, huh?
Holy
Not
mackerel.
lots, but we have
Well,
money.
hot dog.
Can we have Paul be master of
But you
ceremonies?
could use more, right?
We sure could.
you can use more, so
She
if
she could use more.
Paul can be the great pumpkin.
Anyone that wants to,
anyone out there that's looking, that's a
Charlie Brown.
business,
Something to throw at him?
It's candy.
anybody that's a business or a civic-minded individual likes to make a donation, preferably monetary,
Or maybe Carrie
That'd
can
be
be a
nice.
great pumpkin.
you can send it to the Selectmen's office, and Michelle will take care of it. And Mr. Massey nominated Mr. Sigenovich for Great Pumpkin
Thank you.
by acclamation.
Yes.
I might pay for that.
Yeah, right? Don't
There's
think.
no-
Thanks, John.
I know, Carrie, I'm getting the look from Carrie now.
That's
Next
not
up
the
is,
first time he's been called that, Mr. Chairman.
no, not tonight either. The open fall town meeting warrant,
Mr. Chairman,
open on 9/10/2018, closed 10/5/2018 at 1 PM. Last day to post 10/22/2018. Date of fall town meeting 10/29/2018.
so moved.
Mr.
Second.
Joseph, second by Mr. Massey. Any questions or concerns with the dates? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Board member comments. Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, two things. One is, I've thought about whether I should ask the board to reconsider or, reconsider means just comes back up for discussion, or to rescind a motion it took, when the vote was 3-0. And I think, I know I was not back, I was not here, and I think Kerry may not have been here. But the vote was to not hire or even begin the process of hiring a water superintendent. And the reason that I think well, two choices, and I'll do whatever the board advises. We can either reconsider, in which case the vote stands, and we just simply discuss it, why the vote was taken and why we might want to do something different. Or you can rescind the vote, in which case the item is brought back onto the table, onto the floor, and the vote is negated. And then we have a discussion, either way. And I don't know what would be amenable to the board, but there are some, I think, good reasons for not adhering to that vote at this time. But I don't know what the board wants to do.
Mr. Chair, what was the exact wording? Do you remember what we exactly did? I think I remember doing that, but I want to make sure we,
Check.
It was
Yeah.
the minutes before this.
yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah, it would be helpful if we had that.
And technically, I'm really not allowed to, I should not make any comment until a motion is made to either reconsider or rescind.
Well, obviously want to defer till Michelle gets the minutes, but I think the intent of the vote that night was to hold the process
Yep,
until we
until,
get the DPW study.
yeah, that's my understanding of the motion.
And then
Okay.
the discussion with two of the water commissioners that got up that night was not that we weren't questioning their ability to run the department, put anybody in charge, you know, and they brought up the issue of having someone in charge, and my question was, well, the superintendent was out recently for a lengthy period of time. I go, what'd you do then? You didn't, you know, the department didn't stop. So, as Greg said, they made an interim appointment. It was, I know,
They
I was CC'd on some dialogue with the union rep, which I thought was very nice of him to get involved. I didn't like his suggestions, but
Right,
I think you guys came to a consensus, and that's what generated the appointment, right?
And that's, what you just said, Sully, is exactly what I understood to be the case.
Oh, okay, that's,
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think,
But there are issues that I think the board needs to look at. And again, whichever motion is acceptable,
the recommendation.
I will make the motion.
Study will-
yeah, I mean, we couldn't tell them to, well, we had a hiring freeze in place that we voted as a board 6 or 8 months ago.
Is that executive or is that open?
open.
Yeah, let's
So
hear.
open.
Through the chair, Paul, are the issues, are they contractual that you're thinking about? Because that was the biggest argument we heard, that the union would agree, but if we.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I have some concerns about contractual, but it's, for me, it's not the biggest issue at all.
And just so the board knows, we resolved any contractual issues with the union.
Okay,
That's been resolved, and that's no longer a concern.
okay.
I mean, it's unusual to have a union employee be making any management decisions.
Yeah, but his title
It's
is,
unusual, that's all I'm saying, it's unusual.
his title was assistant plant operator already. And we just did it with the interim fire
But he
chief.
was not part of management, he was a union person,
Yeah, but he
strictly.
also, he's pretty much the one that comes in, I believe that's the one who got the appointment. George.
My understanding, too.
Yeah,
He's the one who comes in and
and I
presents.
understand that,
Right.
I understand. And that's why I said, it's not my major point of concern. It is a point of concern that we should be, regardless of how the union takes a position, remember that you don't want to set a precedent of a union person being moved into a management position without some caveat of it being an exception.
We did that with the fire captain, we moved in between fire chiefs.
As long as you make a note that it's an exception. And I don't think that was done in this case.
Yeah, but no, David, we gave David the title. David took it.
I mean, but that's a minor concern.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think as long as we have that person who I didn't know got it till just now there in the interim, I'm happy, I'm good.
Last meeting?
I would be concerned if that person wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think they're most qualified to do that.
You know, like I said,
I didn't know that when, okay.
I don't deem to want to run water and sewer. We made that very clear that night.
Oh.
But my response to the union proposal was, town pays for those licenses, the town sends them for those licenses, the town pays them to go get those licenses. So why can't the town use that license when we need it?
Well, it's not transferable, certainly.
No, it goes to the individual.
Right.
But we
Right.
pay them to go, the town
We
pays them
do.
for the license,
We do.
so I didn't understand the issue.
Well, again,
No,
told-
not with you, I mean with the
Yeah.
comments that night.
Yeah, I understand too of the commissioners that had something to say. I didn't watch the tape of it, I didn't need to, because I knew that the way you portrayed it and what Greg just said is what I heard. All right, there's nothing different, so. That's not a major issue for me. It does provide some concern about the future if we did not say that this is a singular exception under the circumstances. Because you don't want a union, and I'm not anti-union, but I led unions for 21 years, 27 years. You don't want to give a union an opportunity to then lay claim that that is precedent setting. Because as you know, in our negotiations with the police union, you'll hear that from the union lawyer. So you want to be careful and make sure there's certain language
First
in
meeting in
there.
August. That's the one.
But again, that's not my major
That's gonna be
contention. I have other issues that I think are serious enough for the board to ponder. The board, I don't want to hold the board up on this issue
Yeah, and I'm
too
looking
long.
for,
I,
And
Just
the
don't know if
exact
we took a
motion
vote.
is of import, but a motion
I know we
to,
talked about, it, but I don't,
I think we
don't
just
think it's a
took no
motion.
action.
There
I
was a
don't think we
motion.
took a vote.
really?
I don't recall.
action steps and time.
You must have taken some vote in order for the commissioners to act.
I think we just,
think
Mr. Chairman, we
it's
just didn't want them to go
recommendable.
hire a new superintendent
We-
until the study was done.
Right,
That's
we-
what it was around.
That's what generated, I think,
That's
those
it.
two gentlemen coming in.
Yeah.
So it would have been 2 meetings ago, because they came in the last meeting, so it had to be the meeting before that.
yeah, I have that. I don't see it as a motion in the minutes, guys. I'm looking at it
I
right
think the
here.
whole contention is that we have a hiring freeze, so they came to us to see if we would.
Yeah, they wanted to start the process, right? Or-
So, I don't see a motion or a vote. I've got the minutes right in front of me.
Yeah, I don't
So-
recall a vote on
And
that.
I would think it was an advisory,
Right.
and the board stating that with the issue of the hiring freeze and the timing of the study, it was important to hold off until those.
So the board took no action.
Right, that's how I remember it. I
It
don't,
was not asked to take any action.
I think there was discussion, but there was no vote that was taken.
Right, that's what generated,
there was 3 of us here, but that's how I remembered. It was plausible that we did.
Can someone help me understand what the discussion was regarding, if the board took no action, what the discussion was about not hiring or advertising for a water superintendent at this point? Because obviously that has not occurred.
So, from what I recall, Mr. Chairman, there was some discussion about wanting to hire a water superintendent, some discussion about them having concern over a union person holding a position, and saying that
an issue in the past.
it had been an issue in the past. And then it kind of, the discussion faded off to, it faded off to the independent review that's coming up, and what our priority was, and how did we come across, why were we making the decision to have an independent review at this point in time, and,
Who's paying for
you know,
it?
who's paying for it. There was the big emphasis on the water users and sewer users should not pay a penny towards the audit, and we reassured them that was not gonna be the case. It wasn't,
Everyone just got the
that was like a
cards.
push in the conversation, the superintendent.
Okay, on the union issue, Mr.
You
Chairman,
know what happened? Is we're dropped after.
How did
after number
the-
9. This wasn't,
Oh, it was after,
so
oh, I
have
didn't.
you found something?
Yes. Forgot a page. See, they didn't,
yeah, so the vote was, the board voted to award the bid. That was the vote that took place.
For the study.
And, yeah,
this is when Scott McCarchick was here.
Yeah.
and,
So a vote was taken?
To award the study
to award the contract,
to the person who do the study.
Okay.
to award the contract for the study.
And then was there an advisory? What has caused the Water Sewer Commissioners to not look to replace John Meehan with a full-time, non-union/management person?
So, I can
What
tell
has
you,
caused them to not do that?
so I can read from the minutes. Mr. Valiakonis stated that when Mr. Guyon leaves his position as highway superintendent, an interim highway superintendent will be selected, and he suggested the water and sewer commissioners do the same.
Who suggested that?
Greg,
Wah,
I'm sorry?
wah.
Greg,
That's you.
Yeah,
What?
that's me.
All right,
So I think, Mr. Chairman, I think they're just being team players, Paul, I think is what it is. They kind of see where all this goes.
let me ask the board, since no vote was taken, I can't make a motion to reconsider or rescind. There's no need for that. But the inaction by the sewer commissioners, I think, is a result of what they sensed from the board about hold off till the study comes about. I think it's inappropriate for us to have given them, if we did, that impression. And we ought to take a position where we encourage them to move ahead with what they think is important. Let me tell you why I say that. Regardless of what the study says. If that study says, don't go with the DPW, it's not in your best interest, then they're gonna be 2 or 3 months without a permanent water superintendent. If the study says, go ahead with a combined DPW, remember that that has failed 3 or 4 times in the past, and it's got to be approved by the townspeople. So there is a likelihood it may not be, even with a recommendation. And if past history is prologue, then they're still going to have to go out and hire a water superintendent. And the reason I say that is, these people don't grow on trees. They have so many certifications that they require that are peculiar to that position. So at some point, you're either gonna have to hire a DPW head who can run highway, parks and recreation, cemetery, buildings and grounds, and have the specific certificates from the state. Or they're gonna have to go out and hire a water superintendent with those certificates. So why are we gonna hire somebody and let them go out and go through the work of not having one person and then replacing them? I think you ought to trust the water sewer commissioners to do what's best for the town. Give them a free rein and encouragement to do what they think is best, and the town lives with that. It's not our decision, and we don't want to influence them other than to say, do what you think is best. That's what I think we should do. So there is no motion to reconsider or to rescind, but I would ask the board if it would be amenable. And we can't do it because I'm bringing it up as comment. Would it be amenable at our next meeting to take a motion to that effect? Because we can't take a vote on that at this meeting. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I am not a happy camper, and neither should any of you be happy. And this has got nothing to do with political parties. I don't give a rat's fanny. I don't think either one of them is facing a tough challenge. All right? Right-in or otherwise. When Senator Fatman and Representative Durant were here, they were asked if they would look into filing legislation to make the town of Dudley or any other towns that were at the bottom of the Prop 2.5 tax rate, when Prop 2.5 went into effect. They were asked to do that. They were also asked to confirm to us what the state position is in terms of enforcing do not call, which is really a federal list. But what role is the state playing in that? I then asked for this board at a subsequent meeting to take a vote, to send a letter to them in writing to reaffirm those 2 questions. Have they responded to either one yet? So I'm going to tell you right now, and if they were sitting right there, I'd say the same thing to them that I'm saying now. don't blow us off, pal. There's a price to pay for that. So I want them here to give us an answer and tell us what they're gonna do. If they're not gonna do anything, tell us. But if they're gonna do something like they insinuated they could, then I want them to get up off their asses and do it. That's the end of my spiel on both issues.
Well, we can take issue 2 first. We can contact their office, ask them, A, if they've done something that we don't know about, and B, if they haven't, we can certainly invite them in and come and explain what they plan on doing.
They're still waiting for information back.
Well, I'm gonna ask them a little bit tougher. I wanna know why they said yes. Why, after we sent them a letter, they never responded? You know, don't come to my town when you wanna play pretty and get votes. Don't do that. Come to my town after you've done something specifically for my town. Then we'll talk.
Well, like I said, let's find out if they've actually done something that we don't know about. But if not, certainly have them come in and we can ask them in person.
That'd be fine.
And then back to issue A, I'm gonna defer, I think, to Greg on this one. I think, based on the information you provided tonight, I think the course that the water sewer is on right now, and the course that we're on, I think is the one we should stay. And if they're happy, and Paul's concern notwithstanding about the union official, a union member, I mean, but that's happened in the past.
We really can't take an action. We certainly can't take a vote, but you and the town administrator, Mr. Chairman, can make a decision to do something without a vote.
All right, well, I'm meeting you Wednesday morning, so we'll talk about it Wednesday. I'll come in a few minutes early.
Sounds good?
And I also do, my day off.
Sounds good?
Nothing going on at home,
Can it be Kerry's turn now?
going to golf. Yeah, we swap halfway through the year, right? We don't do full year terms anymore.
We can reorganize right now.
How are you? It's not on the agenda.
I know, I don't care.
Damn it.
But no, good.
All right. Where were we? I lost my.
Board member comments?
Carrie,
Thank
board
you.
member? Yes, Paul, thank you.
I just want to touch on something that's been on my mind since we spoke about it earlier with the planning board business. That there's a lot of people that I know, and it didn't really hit me until now, but there's a lot of people that I know that are living on streets right now that aren't accepted by the town. And I think it's our duty, but more so the planning board, the planner's duty, to look after the residents. I mean, so they're paying a lot of money for these houses, and then a couple years down the road, they've got to plow it for themselves, or they have raised catch basins, and it's no one's fault except for the developer. We, as a town, need to start holding these developers to task with what they're doing. And I know we gave Greg permission, not permission, but our blessing, however you want to word it, to speak with the planner, and I really hope something comes of it. That's all.
Well, certainly that's not a can of worms you want to kick over tonight, but the Board of Selectmen took that vote back in, I forget, Danny, 90-something, no more private roads. Like I said, I don't want to kick that worm can over tonight. And I lived on a private road for a while, and it's incumbent upon a developer to do what they're supposed to do. Unfortunately, well, they had some issues later, but the developer I lived in had 99% of it done. But it's true, I mean, but some of those private roads have been private for 20, 30, 40 years, you know, and they're never gonna be, we just went through it when we got defeated at that special town meeting. We can't pay money to work on them, we can't fix them, and some of these developers are long gone. And there's no way to raise monies through chapter money, nor town money, to do it.
To improve private roads.
We've got enough, no more.
Well, we have a road betterment policy,
Right, now we do.
and that's
We
the
do.
only path forward
And
at this point.
Right, road betterment, and then hopefully there's enough people on there that contribute.
Exactly.
That's the root of comments.
I just wanted to ask the police chief about all the activity at the intersection of Center Road and West Main over the weekend. Do we need to ask for some brush cutting to happen again, or is it a?
Yeah, I was gonna put a request into the state, have them come down and look at it again, because I know they cleared out some brush down there. That's historically been an issue, especially if you're coming from Connecticut, looking down to your left there. We're also seeing some of the questions that are coming out from people that are exiting Center Road. I don't know if that's, again, getting blocked up in that area. So we'll have to have that, have them take a look at it, come down and clear it out a little bit or something. But I think we've had 3 accidents down there. Fortunately, nothing really serious injuries, but it's definitely an area that's a concern.
Anything you need Greg for, or any help from us?
No, I don't think so. Not at this point. What I'll do is I'll notify Mass Highway and have them come out again, check it, and
About the brush?
go through. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Ritter, are you, you and I have sat, and in fact, Sally, you have too, on a lot of accidents, a lot of boards that hear about accidents down there. Is it about time that we pursue a blinking red and a blinking yellow? Steve, what do you think?
I'd be all for it, yeah. Some type of signal.
State.
Some type of signal would be good, but again, it's a state road, so it's almost similar to like what we went through like with the 31 project or something else of that nature. But
Well, we can document.
we've had them come out and look at a few things, because they had them also checking the intersection by the courthouse, where Lyons Road is, because that's an area where you come down and looking down the hills.
But
It's
those
tough.
bushes are always gonna grow. Street lights won't.
Yep.
I mean,
Traffic
traffic
lights.
lights won't. They'll stay the same height.
You're
Certainly
assuming
they
they're
do,
made
yes.
out of metal.
Yeah, assuming.
They put
Right,
some signs
I
in.
have maybe an idea.
Yeah.
So in some communities, I go in, they have the LED around the stop sign, which is powered by a little solar thing. Is that a reasonable solution in lieu of going to the state and waiting another 2 or 3 years for them to respond? Because I see them here, there, and everywhere, and they do dark greater visibility to a stop sign, especially at nighttime when someone may be driving through.
We may have to go further than that.
That might be
It could be temporary, it could be a quicker,
a quick solution.
quicker solution as we do.
Yeah, it would be.
Mr. Chairman,
Chapter 90, maybe?
are you suggesting that we put 2 stop signs at that intersection?
No, there's one on Fabian and there's one on Center right now. So if those were powered with LED, they would draw greater attention to the people, the fact that they need to stop.
You
and
could
yield.
do the diamond shape, Mr. Chairman, dangerous intersection
Coming down.
with yellow lights
Same thing.
in both ways.
Same
That's all
on-
state though, right?
I don't think it's a signage issue, I think it's a visibility problem. People are gonna stop saving road and Center Road anyway.
Yeah, they kind of creep, you gotta creep forward though to see.
The highway department cut the brush on the state road and the side of Fabian Road is on it.
Why are we doing state highway work? Just for safety?
Yeah, I told the
Okay.
state doesn't, thing with the brush going down and stuff, so. It's probably the ragweed that's 5 feet tall.
Yeah, that grows so quick.
That
Well,
stuff is pretty
Chief can
wild.
look into
Yep.
it and see. what
Oh,
come up
thank
with
you
a
very much.
plan.
Thank you.
Mr. Massey?
I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow is September 11th, and we should have a moment of silence, or however we want to remember that day.
8:42. I just want to add, as we're talking about roads, I don't know about the office, but a lot of good comments, intersection of Pine and Charlton. Guys redid that corner real nice.
Oh, yeah.
Pierpont, Oxford Ave. One more, what was the other big one you did?
All road. All
Yeah, all road to golf
That
course.
came out nice.
We were there this
Well, that's-
morning.
That's another good one.
Bless you.
That's like I
God
said
bless you.
a few months back, those are some of the few projects I wanted to finish up before I left. There's still a couple more going here, but I might run out of time, but I'll get what I can get.
Well, actually, he took me out this morning, showed me a few of them before we went to work this
Now, how many
morning.
days you got left?
31.
No.
Whoa, that was awful quick, Danny.
Wait, I didn't ask the question yet. How many days you got left?
31.
31.
Okay.
Anything else, anybody? Greg?
Come back. So I just noticed while we were searching through the minutes, I saw that the board asked me to announce the name of the company on the settlement that we had for the fire station project. Once we are in receipt of the check, and so I do have the check in my hand. The name of the company is called DMH Electric Incorporated,
Good.
Sterling, Massachusetts.
Thank you, sir.
Departmental correspondence, comments? Chief, Superintendent? Mr. Fox, anything? Well, you're a departmental chief, you're personnel board.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, see, damn it, I blew it. No, just kidding.
I'm gonna move
no,
that
wait,
we,
Peter,
hold
let
on.
Peter talk.
Oh, Peter, I'm sorry. I can hear you now, Peter.
Me too. Good evening. My name is Peter Fox, Chairman of the
Personnel Board. The reason I came tonight is because of the changes that might be made that Greg is working on and Jonathan Reuter is working on. I had a question because part of it was that Greg would become Personnel Director, and I support that. I talked to him this morning, and I have no problems with that. The reason I asked him about that was how would that affect the Personnel Board? And basically, it does not affect us the way we run today.
And through the chair, I think what we tried to do is codify the way we do business now. It's just seeing it in writing. He is essentially, for all intents and purposes, the Personnel Director.
And I
It's just
understand.
not written anywhere.
And I understand that.
So that's what we were just trying to do with
Yes.
that. It's-
My other comments would be when they talked about replacing superintendents for the water and sewer departments. The water and sewer department clerk came to the personnel board and wanted us to hire somebody immediately. And the decision was made by the personnel board to wait,
To what?
to wait.
All right, so maybe
And
that's
the
what-
reason we wanted to wait is because we also knew about the study that was going on about whether we would have a DPW, excuse me, or not have a DPW. The Water and Sewer Department used a person when Mr. Meehan was out with his bad back for 10 months. And there was no issues whatsoever. Mr. Joseph, the vote or the discussion that was to take place was that there would be no decision whether to hire superintendents or not hire superintendents. The decision was made to wait until after to see what the study would say. That's my interpretation of what was discussed that night.
And I don't agree with that. I think the board of the commissioners ought to have the freedom to do what they think is best, regardless of any inaction or recommendations or innuendos by any other board. It's their decision.
I understand your request, but from my position as a personnel board member is I think that you should wait because if you hire somebody and then 3 months after the study or when a town meeting comes, if the town meeting decides to go with the DPW, now what do you do? If you hire 2 people and then
You've already got a superintendent, so basically you have to hire someone who is not required to have water superintendent skills, but can supervise a highway department.
Okay, but we don't know what the recommendations of that study would be until after,
We don't need to know. No matter what, you're gonna need someone with those certificates.
yes, but from the personnel board standpoint, I wouldn't want to hire somebody and then 6 months later saying that we're going to make another change.
I don't think you can or should do that. Let me just say this. What I said was not a request. It was strictly an opinion, based on what I think ought to be done. And what I think ought to be done is, we, the town administrator, the personnel board, conservation board, no one should make the decision as to what to do except the sewer commissioners, and the rest of us are obligated to support their decision as elected officials. That's all I'm saying.
I have a little different opinion of that. I don't agree with that at this time. My,
Then I think you ought to talk to the sewer commissioners again.
I've already talked to
Okay,
some people about it, yes. Okay, thank you.
it's nice that we
Mr. Fox.
disagree and are
Thanks,
still
Peter.
friends.
Good to see you, sir.
Just like old times.
I almost asked you if you wanted to.
I was gonna say something, but I won't. If it was you, I would've, but I won't. Nothing. All right, next up, we have a executive session we need to motion into, not to return to open session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recess into executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and not reconvene in open session afterwards.
Second.
Motion made and second, call for roll call.
John Marcy, aye.
John Ruda, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Terry Sigenovich, aye.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you, everybody, good night.